People are out there trying to shrink Justin Herbert down to 2 playoff nights. Like the whole Chargers story can fit inside one stat thrown on the table. It can't. And that's where the 2026 pressure behind closed doors gets real. Los Angeles is not just defending its quarterback, it is defending its own ambition. Today starts with that disrespect, moves into a possible offensive weapon that could change the ceiling, hits the real pressure around the pass rush, and finishes with a forgotten name who could fight his way into the picture. If you're part of Bolt Nation, subscribe right now, because this one is coming in hot. The CJ Stroud comparison can come from an honest place, because young quarterbacks really do pay a brutal price when protection collapses and January football swallows the whole offense. But let's talk like grown-ups here. When somebody uses that to push Justin Herbert onto a lower shelf, the conversation stops being analysis and starts sounding like cheap provocation. Herbert got wrecked in that 2024 wildcard game against Houston. 4 interceptions, 14 completions on 32 attempts, a 40.9 rating. It hurts to remember. And the recent loss to New England may be even more frustrating, because the offense put up only 3 points in a game that was absolutely winnable. But that's the part a lot of people pretend not to see. The Chargers did not lose because Herbert stopped being special. They lost because, when the moment got heavy, the entire offense had no answer. That is the real 2026 pressure behind the scenes. The league is waiting for Los Angeles to prove these back-to-back 11-win seasons are more than clean regular season records. Harbaugh has stabilized a lot. Now he has to turn structure into a playoff threat. Because until this team wins in January, critics will grab any bad Herbert night and try to erase 5 years of ridiculous talent. But ridiculous talent does not vanish just because an offensive line breaks down. Last season, even while dealing with a 9.54% sack rate, Herbert still produced 3,727 yards and 26 touchdowns in 16 games. That is not stat padding. That is elite survival. That is a quarterback creating oxygen in an offense that too often looked like it had no escape route. And when the pocket was clean in 2025, his PFF grade was 90.1. Stroud was at 79.0 in that same situation. That gap matters. It shows that when the minimum structure is there, Herbert operates at another level of accuracy, arm strength, processing, and vertical aggression. The debate is not about pretending he has already owned the playoffs. He hasn't. He still needs that one game that flips the national conversation for good. But if the question is who I'd pick to lead a deep run with decent protection and a serious offensive plan, I don't hesitate. I'm taking Herbert. For the arm talent, for the ability to extend plays, for the guts to attack windows other quarterbacks do not even see, for the feeling that if the Chargers finally build the right environment, the narrative could turn too fast for the critics to keep up. So yes, 2026 is a test, but it is not a test of whether Herbert has talent. That part is already settled. It is a test of whether Los Angeles knows how to protect its biggest asset when January starts demanding answers. And after talking about Herbert getting judged without context, the second story almost feels like a challenge thrown right at the front office. If there is one quarterback who needs a weapon capable of changing the geometry of the field, that quarterback is in Los Angeles. Justin Jefferson shows up in this picture as the kind of name nobody in the AFC could ignore if things in Minnesota ever started getting truly unstable. The idea is simple and dangerous. If the Vikings stay stuck in quarterback uncertainty and fail to show Jefferson a clear championship path, the market could start whispering. And when a receiver of that caliber enters any kind of possible blockbuster conversation, serious teams at least need the antenna up. I am not talking empty fantasy. I am talking about recognizing a rare opportunity before it becomes a national headline and everyone pretends they saw it coming first. Jefferson is not just another expensive target. He is a complete #1 receiver, a 4-time Pro Bowler, with 6 seasons of at least 1,000 receiving yards. That means consistency, volume, defensive attention, instant respect. He does not need the entire offense to be perfect to produce. And that should make every Chargers fan sit up, because Herbert does not need shortcuts. Herbert needs somebody who makes defenses pay for every choice. Picture the structural difference. Right now, Ladd McConkey is a valuable piece. Smart, reliable, trustworthy. But asking him to carry the main coverage focus by himself is a different conversation. With Jefferson on the field, Ladd becomes even more dangerous because he works with less suffocation. The other receivers slide into more natural roles. The tight end finds more space in the middle. The run game sees lighter boxes. The offense stops asking Herbert to pull miracles out of tight windows and starts putting the defense in conflict. That is what a real star does. He does not just improve his own numbers, he reorganizes the opponent's fear. And from an aggressive Chargers view, Los Angeles has to think that way. The AFC is full of quarterbacks, coaches, and defenses that are not waiting for the Chargers to grow at a comfortable pace. If Jefferson ever becomes available, Joe Hortiz cannot treat that like distant gossip. He has to measure cost, draft capital, contract, age, fit, and impact. But measuring is not sleeping. Measuring is staying ready. Because a Herbert-Jefferson duo would not just look pretty on paper. It would send a message to the whole conference. The Chargers are not trying to survive the cycle. They are trying to rip the ceiling off the offense. Now flip it to the defense. Because this conversation is not about glamour. It is about pressure. Literal pressure. The Chargers enter 2026 with an edge rusher trio that mixes a heavy name, young production, and a first-round bet already making people inside the building pay attention. Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu II, and Akheem Mesidor. Mack is 35, but he still carries respect. Tuli, who turns 24 in September, is coming off a Pro Bowl season and has led the team in sacks over the last 2 years. Then comes Mesidor, picked 22nd overall, 25 years old, actually older than Tuli. It looks strange at first, but that detail tells a story. The Chargers did not take a raw project just because of explosiveness. They took a player who has already lived a lot of college football, with 65 games between West Virginia and Miami. And when Chris Rim said it is still hard to judge offensive and defensive linemen without pads, but coaches and players have praised Mesidor's quickness and maturity, that does not slide by unnoticed. Maturity in July can sound small. In January, it can be the difference between a rookie lost in the rotation and a player who understands the plan, keeps his routine, and does not become the weak point when the game tightens. Tuli noticed it. He said Mesidor is a pro, that he comes out early, gets his routine going, and has not missed it. I love that kind of signal because it does not come from an edited highlight. It comes from habits. And on a Harbaugh team, habits become currency. Routine becomes trust. Trust becomes important snaps. Odafe Oweh leaving for Washington creates a real opening. That is 7.5 sacks walking out the door. That is not nothing. The Chargers finished tied for 10th in the NFL with 45 sacks. And if they want to stay dangerous on defense, somebody has to turn opportunity into production. Mesidor has the resume for it. In his final season at Miami, he had 63 tackles, 12.5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles in 15 games. Keep the hype under control, though. The NFL is not the ACC in different uniforms. He will face stronger tackles, smarter protection, quarterbacks who get the ball out before a mistake turns into a sack. But the combination is too interesting to brush off. Mack gives him the classroom. Tuli gives him the standard of a young player already producing. Mesidor arrives with body, experience, and that hunger to prove his age is not a curiosity. It is a competitive edge. When the rookies report to El Segundo on July 23rd, and the veterans arrive on July 28th, this is one name I want to watch closely. Because if Mesidor closes the Oweh gap faster than expected, the Chargers defense does not just survive, it adds another blade to the pass rush. And if Mesidor is the loud first-round bet off the edge, Lander Barton is the other side of the building. The player who arrives without the spotlight, without the protection of status, but with a real chance to turn camp into a serious conversation. An undrafted free agent usually comes in through the smaller door, but with the Chargers, the linebacker room leaves that door more open than it looks. Denzel Perryman came back on a one-year deal. That helps the present, no question. But it also screams that Los Angeles needs to think about the future of the position. And Barton, coming out of Utah, does not arrive with an empty resume. He had 207 tackles, 5 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 defensive touchdowns over 4 seasons. Those numbers do not win a roster spot by themselves, but they show something coaches love. He was around the football a lot. What catches my eye with him is not just contact, it is processing. Barton won a lot in college because he identified plays early, attacked downhill, and arrived before the block could fully lock in. For a young linebacker trying to survive in the NFL, that instinct is gold. If you are half a second late, it is over. The running back is through, the tight end has turned his body, the quarterback has found the window. Physically, he also fits what the Chargers want to test. 6 feet, 233 pounds, no fear of contact, hands to shed blockers, a willingness to live in traffic. And there is that interesting background detail. Barton has been used in different roles, even taking offensive snaps as a blocker and red zone target. That speaks to football intelligence, versatility, and trust from a college staff. But nobody needs to sell a perfect story here. The reason he went undrafted is on the tape too. In 2025, he lacked consistency against the run, missed too many tackles, and had trouble at times when he had to match quicker players in space. In the NFL, that gets exposed fast. Chris O'Leary and his staff will have to sharpen his technique, angles, and body control. That is exactly why I like this kind of battle. Barton does not have to be a savior. He has to show he is coachable, that he thinks fast, that he hits with purpose, and that he can contribute on special teams while growing on defense. On a roster trying to survive a long season, that profile matters. I want the Bolt Nation read in the comments. Is Barton just a camp name to you? Or is there a hidden piece there worth developing behind the veterans? When you stack all 4 stories together, they point to the same demand. The Chargers cannot accept a smaller version of themselves in 2026. Herbert needs to silence January with real help, not speeches. Jefferson, if he ever becomes a real possibility, represents the kind of ambition that changes a ceiling. Mesidor can keep the defense hunting quarterbacks. Barton is the quiet bet that shows whether this roster is actually getting deeper. That is what separates a nice season from a serious AFC threat. So stay with me, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come back for the next video, because Los Angeles is entering a season where promise is no longer enough.